In this episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks, AMD Threadripper 9000 many-core CPUs and Dell Premium XPS laptop successors. Next. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Dave Altavilla for Hot Hardware and our illustrious 2.5 Geeks live stream. It's been a while. Good to see you again. With me, as always, I'm going to go this way. The effervescent Marco Chiappetta. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Good for a Friday. Happy Friday to you. It has been a long week. We've had a lot of long weeks lately, though.
Yeah, been a lot going on, man. A lot going on all over the universe.
All over the universe. Well, I would say the tech sphere. There's definitely a lot going on. The universe might be a lot to cover, so we'll stay to tech. What's been going on in your world, in the inner sanctum there, your office and the lab, with the Avengers behind you and all that, by the way. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
so I mean the lab has been I'm still breaking it in, only been in the new house a few months. Still having to unpack a few things here and there that are stuffed in the basement or the garage, but I'm slowly finding my groove. And yeah, just been lots of stuff. There was tons of GPUs through, Q1. Most recently, Threadripper obviously took up a ton of time. Other than that, I just had other projects not necessarily related to HH that I had to work through. And yeah, I have a pile of hardware to get through, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll burn through it.
Yeah, I've been doing. Yeah, you're spread pretty thin. I'm spread pretty thin too. I've been kicking tires on laptops lately, but lots of stuff going on for us. It seems like the run up to Q4, the holiday shopping season, the release schedule for Q4 is fast upon us, even though it's only August. It feels like, and we're just getting into Q3, really, right? It feels like you can feel the momentum building already. We got announcements from handset folks. Google's got a Pixel in the wings. You've got, Samsung's been chirping lately, certainly as well, with new Galaxy foldables. In the handset space, it's been busy. Laptops are coming out fast and furious. We're going to be talking about a couple from Dell today as well. But I don't know, man. Like it seems like every year, we get less and less of that summer lull where you can actually get a little R&R in.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky this year. I didn't travel in July, just a couple trips into Manhattan. So I did get lucky enough to not be on a plane through July.
Yeah.
But yeah, it feels like they kind of, all of the companies we're engaged with are loading the gun right now, and it's going to come fast and furious in the next couple of months.
Amen. I'm still trying to get my studio lighting right here. So sorry, folks, if you're seeing all kinds of funky hues on my mug. But yeah, Mark, you look great, by the way, Marco. Looking fat.
Well, thank you. It's really hard not to.
And he's terribly modest. Terribly modest. Terribly modest. But yeah, absolutely. It was refreshing not to be traveling too much in person. We got some coming up in September for sure, but lots to work on. So it's nice to get work done instead of being on planes. But let's dive in. Let's dive into a couple of topics that we chose that were sort of top of mind today, because you just got through kicking the tires on AMD's many, all caps, many core Threadrippers CPUs, high-end desktop workstation CPUs. But let's start with some mobile stuff first, and we'll get to the meatier stuff, the super expensive stuff in some cases, and the second half here. And but we'll turbo these two because they're kind of they're both premium products actually, but for very different markets. Let's talk about Dell's premium. I should say Dell 14 and Dell 16 premium. Let's add to the stage The Dell 14 and Dell 16 premium laptops reviewed supermodels in every way. I mean, what are we talking about? I can't even remember the latest supermodel name. Could I go back to? I mean, Giselle Bunchen comes to mind. You got a favorite supermodel, but she's not even a supermodel anymore. She's retired. Anybody come to mind for you?
I'm going to age myself too. I mean, you got to go like Cindy Crawford, Elle McPherson, Kathy Ireland, all the classics.
I was thinking Elle McPherson, Cindy Crawford, but some of the folks tuning in probably wouldn't even know who they are, which is crazy. I don't know who the latest supermodel is anymore. That's pretty sad. But yeah,
The latest supermodel is the Dell 14 Premium.
that's it. Well, let's talk about that. There they are there and they're glowing, basking in their purpley blue hue. That's two of them. There's a 14-inch model and a 16-inch model. These are the successors to the Dell XPS, which are big boots to fill, by the way. Dell built a brand on XPS, and it's it's a tough one because they wanted to simplify their branding across the product lines. They wanted to, I guess, really, if you think about XPS, it was beloved. It's a great brand equity. When they started way back in the day, the XPS 13 with its carbon fiber weave and infinity edge display, they got a ton of brand equity they earned on the XPS line over the years, and to leave that behind was a big step. But they had a lot of complexity in other product lines like Latitude, like Inspiron, like I don't know, you name it. They really wanted to simplify things, and so they, in the process of simplifying the rest of the product line, had to pull in the XPS product line into that simplification. And the XPS is no more, which is like, I don't know. What do you think about that first before we get into the actual laptops themselves? How do you think Dell stuck the landing on this rebrand? That's a tough one, right?
Yeah, when I was initially informed, I was like, what are you doing? Like, there's such huge brand equity in XPS and some of the other lines. But in having conversations with some of the folks at Dell, it makes perfect sense, right? If you're in our circles and you're talking to super geeks that understand and have all of the lineups memorized, yeah, XPS had huge brand equity. If you were to poll the entire enterprise and consumer space and ask them what laptop they had, I have a Dell, right? And if you were searching Dell.com, oh, I want a 14-inch with this processor and this much storage, and an XPS and an Inspiron came up along with a number of other models in the lineup. Which one do you pick, right? The general public just doesn't know and aren't willing to put in the research to figure that out. So simplifying things and having a Dell Premium, a Dell Pro Premium, it makes sense, right? Good, better, best. There are some other models in there too for like workstation product, etc. But it does make sense. So as long as they execute on the hardware, it's going to work out in the long run, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the important thing. You hit the nail on the head. They have to execute on the hardware. The XPS is now known as Dell, just Dell 14 and 16 Premium on the end. Premium is the denominator now, and if they can continue with the iconic design, the build quality and all that good stuff, I think it'll work. But these are again big boots to fill. And let's bring them back to the stage. The Dell Premium, or the Dell 14 Premium and the Dell 16 Premium. I'm having a tough time. I want to put Premium before the number. I don't know why it's in my brain that way.
Yeah, me too.
But but Dell 14, just Dell 14, and then you stick Premium on the end, and that's what you're talking is the successor to XPS. There they are, right there. They are nicely appointed, as tested. A little pricey, $2,099 for the 14 as tested, and $2,799 as tested, or $2,800 for the 16. With that, here are the specs. You get a Core Ultra 7 255H Arrow Lake processor. These are the higher end specs that we tested, higher end configurations. Turbo boost up to 5.1 gigahertz. In the 16, you get an RTX 5070 GPU. In the 14, you get an RTX 4050. Of course, you do get an NPU, but you only get a 13 tops NPU. It is not the same NPU that's in Lunar Lake, which is a 48 tops NPU. It's a little bit. It's Intel's first generation NPU, so you do get some AI chops, but because you have that discrete GPU, you've got a little bit more to work with there. In terms of processors. 32 gigs of RAM, in this case, LPDDR5X at 8,400 megatransfers per second, 1 terabyte SSD. Samsung, we found in the 16. So I'm not sure if it's a little snappier than the 1 terabyte Kyuxia in the 14. 1080p, Windows Hello cameras, Wi-Fi 7. It's an Intel BE201, killer NIC, and then gorgeous OLED displays, specifically a 3840 by 2400 in the 16.3 inch, and a 14.5 inch 3200 by 2000 OLED display, both 120 hertz panels. So really well dialed. They weigh in at 5 pounds, just a little hair over 5 pounds for the 16 inch, a hair under 4 pounds for the 14 inch. What are your thoughts on the configs? And then we'll talk about performance with that.
Yeah, the configs are really nice, right? There is obviously like that price range is not attainable by everybody, but you're talking high refresh OLEDs, discrete graphics, decent sized SSDs, 32 gigs of RAM. Like these are well appointed machines. The only I'm not going to say a weird decision because these were obviously designed before the 5050 hit, is having Blackwell generation on the larger model and an ADA generation on the 14 inch, having the 4050 versus a 5070. But for someone with a Dell 14 premium, the 4050 is more than enough GPU, I would think, right? And you make a you're very astute to point out, like, the NPU is not super powerful, but it's powerful enough for like Teams and background blurring, etc. But then you'll have the higher powered GPU if you are doing any sort of heavier lifting AI processing. These aren't AI workstations, but you have the capability with these configurations. In terms of internal hardware, really, other than pointing out that GPU difference, I really take no issue at all. They're really well appointed. It's not necessarily all of the latest hardware across the board, but you got fast memory, beautiful screens, decent sized batteries, and premium materials throughout. So there's really very little to nitpick in terms of the specifications and features on paper.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They're built well. What's interesting and what I found refreshing is they have Arrow Lake under the hood, which definitely gives them a bit more thump than Lunar Lake. Here you're talking about, I think the 255H, is that a 14 core? It's like 6 and 8 or something like that. 6P core.
Six P cores, 8E cores, 2 low power cores.
Yeah. So there you go. Oh, that's actually 16 core processor. So
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, good job on remembering those configs there. Um, yeah, so you definitely get a lot more thump. You're gonna eat some battery life, but these things come with, on the 16 inch, it's got a 99.5 watt hour lithium ion battery. Now that's as big a
Yep.
battery as you can squeeze in a laptop and make it under the FAA regulation to carry it on a
Yep.
plane. So that's a big battery. On the 14 inch, you get a 70 watt hour battery, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 watt hour additional capacity versus the average, which is usually around 60 or 58. Anyways, makes the machine a little bit heavier. So if you're really looking for a super svelte 14 inch machine to toss in a bag, this isn't the 3 pounder. It's just a hair under 3 pounds, a 3.95 to be exact, for the 14 inch. but
Yep.
it's light enough for most folks, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But you do get some additional performance. You do get, with Arrow Lake, you do get discrete GPUs. So you really can't complain there. Where what is polarizing that some folks may take issue with, and I'm going to add it back to the stage here, is this little fella. So
Yep.
this would be the hang on one second. Let's get it dialed in. This would be the general configuration. I think looks like actually the 16-inch machine because it's a little bit
The keyboard layout's actually the same though. It's just the space on either side that's different.
correct. It's just the additional material in the trackpad area and around the capacitive touch buttons. Zero lattice keyboard, no spaces in between the keycaps. I really like the zero lattice, by the way. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's forgiving, like for missed keystrokes and stuff like that, right? Where you're kind of off.
Yep. No, I dig
That
the
way.
keyboards for sure. There's
Yeah.
issues with a couple of issues I take with the layout, but I'll let you finish your thought before I.
Yeah, no, and so I think the keyboard itself, I think good setup. What's jarring here and what folks controversially sort of kick around it's kind of a love it or hate it kind of thing are the capacitive function row buttons up top, and as you can see right there, they're in media mode. I don't know if you can see it close enough on the screen, but they're in media mode. And you got volume up, volume down, toggle camera on and off, mute the mic, all that stuff, switch your display outputs. And then the trackpad, the completely invisible, non-delineated trackpad area. I've run this machine, or I should say the 14 before it, the previous gen 14, as a daily driver. And I got used to it. I actually didn't mind not being able to see exactly where it's roughly in the center, right where it should be, where the space bar is on the keyboard. That's where it's located. It's not the entire palm rest area that the trackpad exists, but it's in that central region. I learned it. I would say it took me a while. I think the problem with reviewers is if you haven't experienced this before, Zach did this review for us from our team. It is jarring. You're gonna have some learning curve, and you may not get over that learning curve in the 2 or 3 weeks it takes to pull off a review. What are your thoughts about all that, the keyboard itself, and whether or not Dell should change the recipe there or stick with it and try and get it into the market more?
Yeah, so sticking with the trackpad because that's what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be some delineation, something. It could be the subtlest of silk screening on the wrist rest, something so there's at least a tiny visual cue when someone looks down, and
Hmm.
they can visualize where their hand is and where the touchpad is. The second issue, and like normally when we're reviewing laptops, when you hear it's a large trackpad, you're happy, right? But what Zach found was the combination of the large trackpad with no delineation is he often found multi-finger gestures weren't getting recognized either because his fingers weren't close enough together or he was off the trackpad. So like I don't think that's a frustrating out of box experience for a new buyer in my opinion. If you're
Hmm.
just trying to double finger scroll and you can't get it right because you haven't memorized where it is, that's not going to be a good experience, right? So, period. I don't care how much you love the design, that's going to happen, and people aren't going to be happy about that. So, that's an unfortunate situation for Dell. Um, Getting to the keyboard, love the design, love the look. The keys do feel good. The silly decision, in my opinion, is a completely unlabeled rectangular button at the upper corner for power. If you don't know it's the power button, you're not going to find it, right? You're just
It's
not going
right
to find it.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, the upper right. It's just a rectangle with nothing on it.
Yeah.
Um, and then regarding the capacitive buttons, I'm of two minds, right? I love how beautiful and clean that whole deck is. But I mean, capacitive buttons don't work all the time if your skin's really dry or really, you're it's overly humid. There's environmental issues that can cause a capacitive button be unresponsive in that moment. And again, that mars the experience. So yeah, it's beautiful, but if you're trying to do something and it's not working at first touch, you're just going to introduce some frustration.
Yeah, I personally think the capacitive function row is less of an issue. I think folks are going to, understand how to use that, or get used to that quicker than the trackpad issue.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I'm of two minds. I think it's beautiful. I think it takes some getting used to, but that's the problem with, like, it's the trackpad that's the biggest hurdle here, I think. The issue is, folks are used to the standard trackpad. They've been using that all their lives on laptops, and it's very non-traditional. And so, if there is a challenge in finding multi-gesture support, of being in the region of the trackpad precisely enough to use multi-gesture support, however, whatever that issue that Zach tripped over on our team, um, that's going to be a problem, and folks may or may not toss it out quicker than they should. So I don't know. It's something to look at. Let's just talk performance, and we'll move on real quick. These laptops really scored well in the benchmarks. Again, you're talking Arrow Lake, you're talking discrete GPUs. So when it comes to thin and light laptops, which these are, you get some pretty darn good performance. I'll switch them in here real quick. Looking at the Cinebench, you see that the 16-inch is right up there in the top quadrant. The 14-inch is down in the bottom quadrant. But when you compare it versus Lunar Lake machines, it's like in the 900s for multi-thread, very respectable single thread. And and if you look at Lunar Lake down the bottom, it's in the 600s. So versus Lunar Lake machines, a bunch more horsepower on tap, like 30% faster multi-threaded performance. And then, of course, with those discrete GPUs, it can game. But let's move along now and get back to some heavier duty stuff. Let's talk Threadripper, and I'm going to go ahead and fire that up for folks. Ryzen Threadripper 9900X and 9970X, bountiful cores, big performance, bodacious, big and bountiful performance. There it is. That is a honking dinner plate of a chip. The 9980X right there. Threadripper, Ryzen Threadripper, high-end desktop processor, workstation CPU. Marco, you tested these things. What are your key takeaways, brother?
The high level takeaway, they're freaking awesome, right? Period. Our roots are an enthusiast PC, and when you can just decimate everything else in your class, in your category, you can't help but get excited. And that's what these processors do, right? The Threadripper 9000s are Zen 5 based, many core chips, just awesome performance for multi-threaded workloads, but through optimizations to the platform firmwares, because they're based on Zen 5 with those newer cores, and tweaks to the memory speed. It supports a faster default memory speed than the previous gen. There's just very little compromise for everyday computing, whether you're working in a web app or Microsoft Office, and they're just awesome for multi-threaded workloads, rendering, AI, etc. I'm going to take one quick step back just to explain, like, if you haven't stayed on top of this, there's two series of Threadripper 9000s. There's the standard Threadripper 9000s, and then there's the Threadripper Pro. The Pros have up to 8-channel memory, and the top end SKU has 96 cores, and it's like a $12,000 processor. The Pros target professional workstations. They require a different chipset, the WRX90 chipset. Now it's the same socket, but it's a different chipset and configuration. So if you go for a full Threadripper Pro configuration, you get more PCI Express lanes and 8-channel memory for additional bandwidth. You can plug in a bunch of GPUs and a bunch of memory, and literally just have a super powered, AI workstation in a mid-tower chassis. Now, the Threadripper Standard series, same STR5 socket. The Threadripper Pros will work in a TRX50 chipset, right? But you only have 4-channel memory. So the regular Threadripper 9000s up to 64 cores on the 9980X. 9980X is the top end standard Threadripper 9000. And you have up to 80 PCI Express 5 lanes on a TRX 50 motherboard, and the out-of-box support for DDR5 6400 memory speeds. Now, they do still require the registered DIMMs, require RDIMMs, like the previous gen platform, but they drop into existing TRX 50 motherboards, so compatible with all of the same platforms as Threadripper 7000. And on the negative side, right, there's not a fresh new batch of fun motherboards to look at, but this is a mature platform, right? If you're a DIYer and you're building one of these, you can have a little more confidence that many of the kinks are worked out from the motherboards, and it's just going to work when you plug it in. In terms of like performance and power, the chips are designed to use all the power in the socket. So power consumption is roughly the same as the Threadripper 7000 series. You have noise in the benchmarks and the measurements, but roughly the same peak power, much lower idle and single core power, even though performance is better. So more efficient. And with the Zen 5 architecture, more performance. They scale much higher multi-threaded workloads. So like if you come check out the review and look at all the charts, I think I have something like 45 benchmark charts. So come to the site and look at it all and digest it all. You're going to see the Threadrippers at the top 99% of the time, except for a few corner cases. So really awesome platform. The only real drawback is like this is premium through and through, so you're going to pay for it. A 9980X is a $5,000 chip. The 32-core 9970X is a $2,500 chip. Motherboards are roughly $900 to $1,200 for the standard Threadrippers. You could double that for a WRX90 motherboard with 8-channel memory. But man, it's just so fun to play with. Just so powerful. It's really, it's just a killer platform for what it's designed for.
Yeah, I would agree. Here's the matrix for what you tested: the 9980X 64 core 128 thread, up to 5.4 gigahertz with max boost, 3.2 gigahertz base, $5,000, $499, $499.99, and the 9970X 32 cores boosts up to 5.4 gigahertz as well, 4 gigahertz base there. Half the L3 cache, so 256 meg in the 64 core 80X, 128 meg in the 70X, and then the 9960X 24 core 48 thread, base 4.2 gigahertz, 5.4 max boost, and again 128 mega cache. That 60X. That, and it's only $1,499, only $1,499, $1,500. But that 60X sort of screams enthusiast high-end workstation creator. You don't need to justify, 10 or 20 grand on a system. You can build something significantly less. You can get into a system for $5,000 or something like that, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on pricing. You're right. But if you're only going to use a single GPU, I personally would buy a 9950X 3D, right? Because you get faster turbos, higher sustained turbos when fewer cores are used. And unless you're always doing huge multi-threaded workloads, 16 core with that 3D cache is super fast, right? When you step up the stack, things get really interesting, right? Because now for a 9970X, you're talking double the cores of a 9950. So again, you have to be working in that multi-threaded world to appreciate that. And it's ideally you're either connecting a bunch of PCIe drives or multiple GPUs. You're leveraging all of that extra IO, right? And if you are, this is the best platform, period. In terms of pricing, though, another thing that I really want to point out is these were introduced at the same price point as the 7000 series. So despite like the world catching on fire in the last 2 years, like prices didn't go up. Yes, this is still a huge premium. Like on a per core basis, they're many times more expensive than the standard desktop Ryzens. But in addition to more cores, you do have the additional IO. You do have the more memory bandwidth. You do have more robust infrastructure. Like the motherboards are just built like tanks. There are no crappy TRX 50 motherboards, right? So Yeah, you got to pay to play, but AMD didn't, crank the dial to 11, even though basically everything else in the whole world got more expensive the last 2 years. So in general, man, there's really very little to complain about. Just a really powerful, feature-rich, nice platform.
Right. Yeah. Eye-watering pricing in some cases, but if you want that kind of horsepower, you can get it. And look at how pretty that thing looks in the socket.
I mean, that photography is just unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable photography.
I'm
It's
just kidding.
gorgeous.
I definitely rushed. I definitely had to rush the visuals on this one because
No, that looked good. That looked good, man. Yeah. So, but then I'm going to skip down to. Sorry about the scrolling, folks, but here's a little Cinebench action, and holy guacamole! Look at those numbers, right?
yeah. So I didn't put the mainstream processors in here. I regret that
Mm,
now after the fact. But if you were to
mm.
go look at, say, I'm going to go pull up a number for the 9950s, right? If you
Yeah,
look at those bars, oh look, it's faster than the comparable Xeon W's, right? Which you,
right.
you kind of expect because AMD. It's an updated platform. It's their latest architecture. Those aren't Intel's latest cores, and there are some deficiencies in the Xeon W platform, but like a 9950 X3D in Cinebench, right? Scores, give me 1 second, 2311. What's that top number, Dave?
That's 6,496.
yeah, there you go. Right. So that's what's the slowest one on this list that I can't see it now that it's crunched
It's
down there?
it's 4,057. That's the
Right.
9970X.
So a 99, well, what about at the very, very bottom of the chart? I mean,
Oh, the
let's
very
use some
bottom
Xeons.
is
Yeah.
the Xeon W7 2595X at 2469.
Yeah, so the 9950 is below the lowest chip here, right? So that's the kind of delta. It's really a monstrously powerful processor.
Yeah, yeah. If you're doing content creation, you're ripping video, you're doing 3D rendering of any serious task, you're working with, Unity, Unreal Engine, all that stuff. You're working in AI because they're very powerful to feed the beast for AI workloads, whether you're doing AI rendering on GPUs, or even you could even consider directly on the processor as well in this case. Um, yeah, just the most powerful thing on the market for the desktop, short of a server CPU for the desktop, yeah, can't beat it. So you got to hand it to them for that. Fastest chip in town.
Yeah, I mean it's basically an epic for desktop, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff. Well, with that, we should probably bid adieu to folks. Make sure you stop by hothardware.com. We will drop links in the chat to both Marco's magnificent Threadripper piece, Threadripper 9000
Thank
piece
you.
that he poured blood, sweat, and tears into, and as well as the Dell 14 and 16 premium laptops at hothardware.com, where you can find us on the web. We'll drop those links in the chat. Hit thumbs up and subscribe so you get notified when we go live. We're getting ready to shoot another webcast in about 10 minutes here with some other colleagues of ours. Holy mackerel, we're everywhere. So hit thumbs up, subscribe, get notified, and support the channel. Would appreciate it. Marco, any final words before we bid everybody adieu?
Yeah, absolutely. Like there we post essentially 3,500 articles a year on HotHardware if you count the news and the reviews. So we cover literally the tiniest sliver of a fraction of the content at HH when Dave and I are shooting a webcast like this. So please hit hothardware.com, check the featured articles, check the news, interact with other like-minded tech loving folks in the chat, and explore the site. There's tons more data. Like we literally, even in the stuff we did cover, we covered just a little bit of the data. So I hope you come by this site. I hope you follow us on socials. I hope you like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed being with us.
Absolutely. And until next time, we thank you so much for stopping by.